Welcome to this talk on Jakarta EE 9 and beyond. My name is Ivar Grimsted, and I'm the Jakarta EE Developer Advocate at Eclipse Foundation, and I wish you welcome here to EclipseCon. And today, here's some information about myself. You can see my Twitter handle, my GitHub, and all the stuff I'm involved in here. I won't go into details of anything of this, but if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn or email or wherever you can find me. So let's dive directly into this. We have 25 minutes and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. The current version of Jakarta EE is 9.1. And as this talk is called Jakarta EE 9 and beyond, I'm focusing on the beyond part. So Jakarta EE 9.1 added Java SE 11 support to Jakarta EE 9. And that means that the implementations can be certified to be able to run on Java SE 11, whereas 9 was on Java SE 8. The key aspects of 9 and also 9.1 was to lower the entry barriers to allow for new members to certify their products. We wanted to establish Jakarta EE as a platform for innovation, kind of get over with all this boilerplate stuff to just move the specifications from the JCP over to Eclipse Foundation and Jakarta EE. And we wanted to make the migration easy to the new version. And the migration, I'm meaning the transition from the javax package names to the Jakarta namespace. And I'll demo this later in this talk. The namespace was the big thing for 9.1. There's essentially nothing new since Java EE8 in Jakarta EE 9 and 9.1. But in 9.1, we transferred the namespace in order to be able to have a new starting point. And why should I care about this namespace? What if I'm not using Jakarta EE? What if I'm using some other technologies? What if I'm using Spring Boot? Why should I care about the Jakarta namespace? Well, I'll tell you what. The next version of Spring, the Spring Framework 6, will be based on Java 17 and a Jakarta EE 9 baseline. And a Jakarta EE 9 baseline means it's on the Jakarta namespace. It doesn't mean that Spring will move to the Jakarta namespace, but Spring is building on a very large amount of the specifications that are included in Jakarta EE. Just think about bean validation and Hibernate, for example. And the work is going on. This is, it says 4 days ago, but that was 4 days ago when I took the screenshot, and that is a couple of months ago. But the Spring Framework have moved to the Jakarta namespace. They've done the transitions. And as you see, this is a fairly big commit. And if they can do it, you can do it as well. I mentioned a couple of areas where you will be affected if you're, even if you're not using Jakarta EE by this namespace change. So it's kind of a disruptive thing in the industry. And you can see here Jetty and Tomcat. So if you want to stay on the latest version of these web servers, you got to change to the Jakarta namespace because they've already moved. And whereas they are maintaining older versions, at some point in the future, they will stop maintaining the javax namespace. And Hibernate also are moving to, or have moved to, the Jakarta namespace. So what's happening beyond Jakarta EE 9.1? Because 9.1, that was in May. So what's going on now? Well, after 9, 10 comes. And 10 has a target date of Q1 in 2022. That's what we're working towards. We are currently in the finalization of the development and creating milestones of the various specifications. And we are around this time starting the release reviews of the specifications. So we said that we wanted to have release reviews from the specifications indicating part of the Jakarta EE 10 around October 15 and going on until around December 15. And that's when we start doing the final work to wrap everything together and produce a ratified final specification of the platform and the web profile. And Jakarta EE 10 is quite an effort. You can see all the blue boxes there, all the blue specifications. They're the ones that are being updated for Jakarta EE 10. And there is a mix here between the .0 and the .1 releases. And the .0 releases are major updates from Jakarta EE 9. And you can see it's about half and half. So there are many specs that are potentially doing backwards incompatible changes. And all the others, the .1 releases, are adding features requested by the community, but no backwards incompatible changes. There is a little one to notice here, and that is JSON binding up in the right of the slide. They may do a 3.0, which means backwards incompatible changes, but they haven't filed a plan for that yet. So currently, it looks like it's a 2.1, but it may be a 3.0. If we kind of gray out the more enterprisey parts of these specifications and just look at the ones I'm showing now, that is what will be the Jakarta EE 10 web profile. And as you see, there are many major versions here, lots of updates. And the web profile is a smaller, it's a subset of the platform, which enables to have some smaller runtimes that it doesn't implement all the enterprise features. If we gray out the specifications that are more aimed towards web application or traditional web applications, we're left with a set of specifications that are perfectly suited for creating headless specific applications or microservices if you want. And this is a new profile we're introducing in Jakarta EE 10 called the Jakarta EE 10 core profile. And let's look into this in a little bit more detail, because this is something new. The web profile has been with us since Java EE 6. And it's always been since then the platform, which is everything, and the web profile, which is a subset targeting web applications. And now we're introducing the core profile, which is targeting smaller runtimes. And by targeting smaller runtimes, we're meaning that this will potentially make it possible for runtimes like Helidon, Quarkus, Micronaut, and others like them to be Jakarta EE compatible. Not necessarily, that's why I'm saying possibly or potentially compatible, but we're kind of targeting these smaller runtimes. And the way we're doing that is we'll look into a couple of these specifications. There is a new one coming here, config 1.0, and Jakarta config has a little star there. It may not make it to the Q1 release of the core profile, but we may also wait a little bit with core profile to make config be a part of it. And that is also something new we're doing, allowing for the different profiles to be released independently of the platform. And Jakarta config will provide portable configuration from environment-aware sources. And this is something you're probably familiar with from microprofile config. You can find everything about Jakarta config under https jakarta.ee specifications/config. And what Jakarta config is delivering is the same functionality as microprofile config is delivering today. So it would kind of take over the relay from microprofile. And so you should be able to configure your services in an environment specific way, so you don't have to compile your source codes again if you're moving between environments. So it's perfectly suitable for cloud deployments and that kind of thing. Another specification that is new for core profile is the CDI Lite, and that's kind of the core of core profile. And the CDI Lite is designed to work in more restricted environments. And let's look at what we're meaning with that. We're kind of removing some of the dynamic aspects of CDI. And by removing, I mean, it's still there, it's still in CDI. And that's why we call it CDI Lite. It's CDI without the dynamics features. So we're able to do ahead of time compilation to cater for technologies like GraalVM if you want to create native images. RESTful Web Services is also getting an update for Core Profile and Jakarta E10. And there are Jakarta RESTful Web Services, or Jakarta REST for short, is coming in 3.1 release, which will contain updated API with a lot of requested features from the community, but also being backwards compatible. There is also plans for a 4.0 release of Jakarta REST, but that will be targeting Jakarta 11. So some of the features they are delivering in 3.1 is a Java SE Bootstrap API. And that means that you can bootstrap your applications in a Java SE environment without using an application server. And in this case, the My application here is a standard Jakarta REST application configuration. So you can take the same application and drop it into a Jakarta EE runtime, or bootstrap it here with the .start method here with the bootstrap mechanism in Jakarta REST. So that's kind of flexible if you're running outside of a container. They're also adding multi-part form data support. And that means that it's kind of been around there for a while, but it's been vendor specific. So this is a fully portable way of doing multi-part form data. And this code sample shows how to do that by returning a list of entity parts. And these parts will can have different media types, and they can be delivered using the @produces media type multipart form data. The JSON specifications are getting minor updates. As I said, there may be a major update for JSON binding, but that hasn't been communicated yet. Or it's an intention about it has been communicated, but otherwise they will provide smaller features that are good for developers and requested by the community. I won't go into details for this now. And I certainly won't go through all of these, but I'll show you a little bit from what security is planning. And Jakarta Security are adding features and evolving the API. And these features are, among others, additional authentication mechanisms, such as support for OpenID Connect and OAuth2, and also allowing for more flexible use of the authentication mechanisms, such as authentication mechanisms per URL, or that the user can choose what authentication mechanisms to use, and also that you can have multiple authentication mechanisms configure in your applications. For example, if your UI, a JavaScript UI, is using a different authentication mechanisms from your REST API, for example. So what else is coming in 10? We're aligning with Java SE. And the way we're aligning with Java SE in Jakarta E10 is that we are requiring all the APIs, all the specifications to be compiled to a binary 11 of Java SE 11. That means that every feature up until Java SE 11 can be used in the sources of the APIs. What's important here is that we will make sure that the TCK runs with Java SE 11 and above. And that means that the runtimes will most likely certify on 11 and 17, and we will make sure that the TCK is possible to run on 17, so vendors can certify their products there. And that means that you as app developers can use SE 17 features in the applications, and that's what you want. You don't really care about what level the source level the APIs are using, and it's probably a good thing to wait a little bit by incorporating the Java SE 17 features in in the APIs until we have some experience with how to best use them in an API. So this is a major step forward, and I'm guessing that there will be runtimes out the door on the date when we launch Jakarta EE10 that will certify on Java SE 17. So it's there for you to use. And that is kind of the cue to go into demo mode. And I'll go through what I will demo here. I'll take an application running and do kind of the typical steps you would do if you were moving from a previous version of Java EE or Jakarta EE and go into the latest version. And I'll also throw in some Java 17 features, how you can use that with your application. And my application is a what you can say a typical Hello World application. Of course, I could hard code one string and return it and say Hello World. But as any developer, I like to complicate things when I can. So what I'm doing here is to store a message in a database. I'm using Jakarta persistence to retrieve that message, and I'm having my business logic in Jakarta Enterprise Beans, or EJB that it used to be called. And then I have a Jakarta REST endpoint that are producing JSON using Jakarta JSON binding. And also have a CDI extension that prints a message to the system admin that are deploying the application. And there are different ways I can go about doing this. And one of them is transformation. What I could do is to use the Eclipse transformer or the Apache Tomcat migration tool and actually take the bytecode, the WAR file from my Java EE8 or Jakarta EE8 application and just migrate it to run in on the Jakarta namespace. And that is something that is useful for you if you just want to test it quickly. Just transform in the binaries and deploy them and see if that runs. And it's also useful if you have some parts of your code that you don't have access to the source code. But if you have access to the source code, you should actually do this on source level and not on binary level. You can also use the IDE, and I'll actually use the IDE here to demo. And the IDE I'm using is IntelliJ from JetBrains. Other IDEs have some similar support as well, but here's a plugin where or a refactoring tool that allows you to directly migrate your application from Java EE to Jakarta EE. If I were to do it all manual, and I use this as a checklist to remember everything, this is what I have to do. I have to update the POM files, fix the imports, check if I'm using any XML schema namespaces, check if I'm using properties, rename the bootstrapping files if I have any, and verify all the data and look that it works. So let's just dive into the demo and see how it goes. So I have my application here. I'll quickly go through it. It is a Jakarta REST application. You can see it's on the JavaX namespace. It has this simple Jakarta REST endpoint that produces JSON output. It has this Duke's service, which is my enterprise Java bean. That is doing the logic, and the current logic is just to take the first one, otherwise return something hard-coded. And I have the repository that is doing the actual SQL using the criteria language from Jakarta persistence. And I have my CDI extension that is printing a message in the log file. So let's go ahead here and migrate this one. And the first thing I have to do if I'm using this tooling here is, you can see I'm on 8 here. What I need to do is to add the dependency for 9. Let's go ahead and do that here. And update this one to version 9.1.0. There we go. Then I can take my my application here, go to the refactoring menu. Let me just find it there. Oh, sorry about this. Let's find the migrate. Where is it? So I can take the migrate packaging class, and I can go here and say that I want to migrate the complete Duke application, and I want to run this this migration for me. And the tooling would do all the source codes automatically for me. I'll just do the refactoring here. I see that we are getting a little short of time, so I'm skipping a couple of steps here. But what you can see here is that I'm coming to the Jakarta namespace. I can take the Jakarta EE dependency, remove it. I'll just reload my project. Sorry, there we go. Reload. And you can see everything here has been updated for me. Another thing that I actually need to do as well is to fix the schema namespaces. So if I'm using the old jcp.org namespaces, I need to change these to use the new Jakarta EE namespace. And it's now Jakarta.ee. I'll just take this and copy it. And there are a couple of places I have to replace this. Let's go there. And the last at the end. There you go. And also update the version file of the schema to version 3.0. And also, since I've updated the versions, I need to check if I have any properties here that are using the javax namespace. So I'm switching these to the Jakarta. And the last thing I have to do is to take the bootstrapping files and rename this one to from javax to Jakarta. I'm going quickly now because I'm running out of time here, but you can find all these source codes in I'll put some links at the end, and you can go and try it out yourself. So I'll just add the complete Duke application to my Glassfish server here and deploy it. And I'm using Glassfish 6.2, which is the latest version of Glassfish that implements 9.1. So it's building now and deploying. And as you can see, the greeting in the message comes from the CDI extension, which I just changed now. And you can see the application is now running on Glassfish, and I have the complete Duke hello. And it says, and this is the last step, if you remember from the, you probably have some dynamic content and stuff in your application, and you will have to update these as well. And that is the database. And the message here is, you can see it comes from E8, and that's because that's what's in the database. I don't have time to show the Java SE 17 features, so I'll skip that. But if you check the GitHub URL I'll provide in a minute, you can go in there and look at it. So to sum up, Jakarta E9 lowers the entry barriers. It's a platform for innovation, and it allows for easy migration. The namespace is the important thing in 9. In 10, we have a lot of stuff common, and I encourage you to join in and see what's going on there. And here are the promised URLs. So Going to the Jakarta EE to find everything about Jakarta EE. We have the blogs on jakartablogs.de, and also check out my weekly #Jakarta EE on my blog as well. And I also, on my GitHub, which you can find linked from my blog here, you can try out the demos I showed, and the link to the demo code is also in the slide with the demo. So I'll publish the slides afterwards. There we go. So I see we have a couple of questions there. So I'll go now and see what we have. So question 1, how does core profile relate to microprofile? And core profile relates to microprofile in a way that microprofile implementations will be able to certify on Jakarta core profile as well as microprofile. So it will be the foundation for microprofile. What is footprint of core profiles in the most minimal configuration? That is depends on the implementation. You can get them fairly small, really small actually, and you can. But I don't know the exact footprint. You have to go to the different vendors and look at how they do things. But if you look at the small runtimes such as Pyara Micro or OpenLiberty, you can get them fairly small. What IDE am I using? I'm using IntelliJ, but you can use Eclipse IDE or NetBeans. All of them have Jakarta EE support. And the question for what versions of Java are compatible with Jakarta EE 9? Jakarta EE 9 is supports 8. If you're looking for Java SE 11 support, you will have to go for an implementations that are implementing Jakarta EE 9.1. I know that there are some implementations that are certified on Java SE 17 on 9.1, so you can use everything between 8 and 17 on Jakarta EE 9, but it depends on the implementation. For 10, we are targeting the API level would be 11, so you will need 11, but there will be implementations supporting higher versions. Question 5, from which version of Eclipse should we assume compatibility with Jakarta EE 9 and need to migrate to an Eclipse-based product? Well, I'm not really familiar with the Eclipse IDE, but I'm pretty sure you can use it today with Jakarta EE and Jakarta EE 9. There is a couple of projects going on at Eclipse, the language server for Jakarta EE and language servers for microprofile that the Eclipse IDE use. So many of the specifications are supported in the Eclipse IDE today. Has Eclipse some migration utility as shown with IntelliJ? I'm not aware of it, but the Eclipse Transformer is a project that does the transformation on byte level. But the IDE is an open source project, so if you want to contribute to that by implementing this functionality, I'm sure they're going to be happy for it. Okay, another question. We're using JCA connector built against Java EE 5 APIs. Any chance the Transformer project would be able to update that file? Well, you got to try it, because I think it potentially can. It takes the namespaces and switches them. So as long as there are no API changes, so it depends on the connector, how much changes there are in the connector APIs from 5 to 8, because it will directly map 8 to 9. But if the packages are different between 5 and 8, you will have some problems. But there's only one way to find out, and that is to try it. With that, I thank you very much for listening, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.